Well, a Saskatchewan researcher has found an historical link to a present day petition. Last month, we told you the town of Duck Lake is looking to sell its naming rights to pay for much needed infrastructure projects. Well, shortly after that, a group of residents started a petition to keep the name Duck Lake. And it turns out this is not the first time the community has debated a name change. Kiera Palmer says she's found a petition from 131 years ago. Kiera is a Duck Lake resident and the historical researcher for Beardy's and Okamesis Cree Nation. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Kiera, what prompted you to look way back into the history of Duck Lake's name?
Well, this weekend I was, on Facebook reading the comments, and some of the main points that people had um, for the name change is the fact that Duck Lake has had a name change before. So what's the big deal kind of thing, right? And the other argument is that Duck Lake right now is not at its original town site, that it moved slightly. So I wanted to see if I could find anything about this name change so that, I wanted to find information so that residents can make an informed decision when and if the time comes for them to vote.
Yeah, and Kiera, where did you look?
Well, I looked in the Library Archives of Canada in the advanced search. I typed in Duck Lake name change. There was no digital copy. However, I know that Canadiana Heritage digitizes and makes accessible most of the popular archives. So I took a chance. Got the microfilm reel number. I searched into Canadiana Heritage and popped up the microfilm with 1,500 pages.
Okay. And what did you learn? What did you learn about the original names? Because obviously, again, this isn't uncommon to Duck Lake, obviously. I mean, there's Indigenous names. Then they just name them after the first postmaster or the person who built the railroad tracks. And then it changes again. So what did you learn about the Duck Lake area specifically?
So through my research, I've learned that the area that is known as Duck Lake has always been called that, right? It was called that before, before it was settled by the Indigenous name. And so what happened in 1894 was not a request to change the town's name. It was actually a request to change the town's post office. So the files that I was looking at were post office department divisional inspectors reports. And it was an MLA at the time named Hilliard Mitchell who started this petition that got 50 signatures. And I mean, I have it printed out here. It's very cool to see something so old with original signatures from, at the time it was a male head of households who could sign the
Okay.
petitions.
Yeah.
There's no women's signatures, but nonetheless, it's an important piece of historical information.
Yeah. And what was it called back then? The post office?
The post office was called Stobart
Stope.
after William Stobart.
Okay. And so what did Hilliard Mitchell do?
Hilliard Mitchell got the residents together and they decided that I have a quote here. This is a quote from the petition. The Duck Lake Post Office, being called Stobart, causes such inconvenience and confusion in correspondence and other wire. So due to that, they got together and, got 50 signatures and presented it to, who did they present it to? The royal head of post office.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating, just that part alone. So is the post office still called Duck Lake today?
It is. Yeah. The only building or company that's still named after Stobart is Stobart Community School. So William Stobart and his son, Frederick Stobart, they focused more on things back in England and as well in Winnipeg. So in Winnipeg, the Stobart Sons and Co. If somebody wants to look up that, they will find tons of information as well. It's Frederick was a very historical person, so was his dad, but they weren't around. And Hilliard Mitchell was around. He was, oh my goodness, he was a justice of the peace. He was an MLA. He was a fur trader. He was also a coroner and a landowner.
Wow.
So he was a lot of things. He had his hand in almost everything. So it doesn't surprise me that he's the one that did this petition.
Well, I wonder, too. I didn't know about today or until today that Stobart still had, a presence through the school, as you mentioned. Do you think most people in the Duck Lake area are familiar with, kind of the different variations of names over the history?
I don't think so, because as far as, I know through talking orally and even through a Google search, it is stated that the town went through a name change in 1894. But this document that I found proves that the location was always referred to as Duck Lake, and that it was the post office that is being changed from Stobart.
So how does all of this make you feel about the current context? Again, we had the mayor of Duck Lake on our show talking about potentially selling the name. After learning all this, what does it make you feel about this current day debate?
I think that it's impactful. It's hard to have a informed opinion due to, there weren't many meetings with the residents prior to that announcement. I think that it's culturally sensitive. I think people might not want their identity, their heritage, their history being commercialized. And it might dilute the town's unique history somehow. On the other hand, we need infrastructure support. So, where do we go from here? I guess that's something that, with now that everybody is kind of thinking, maybe we can get together and figure something out as a town. That would be the ideal solution.
Yeah, Kira, what's the discourse like in town, in the region right now? Because obviously I can read things on social media, but it could be people who don't actually live there or, have any direct input in this. How are people feeling about it right now?
There seems to be a bit of tension because people feel very strongly on either one side that, like, no, we cannot do this. This is a piece of our history of us. And then on the other hand, people are saying there's been a name change before. This isn't the original town site. This town is going to die if we don't do this. We need to do this now. Right. So, it's kind of, typically when people have political differences, it's like federally or provincially, but this is very local.
Right. Well, and then the other element, and I asked the mayor this directly, is I think the key to selling naming rights is we're obviously thinking the people that'd be interested in buying it would be a corporation or something. How do you feel about all that?
I would be devastated, I think, if a corporation wanted to name our town after themselves. Ideally, as Mayor Anderson has said before, ideally it would be somebody who has, an Indigenous or a Métis company, but we really don't know.
Right. Well, Kiara, we really appreciate you going back more than 130 years for this context. It's very valuable to this story. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.